Not at all, man. Not at all. Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Do Rebel. Welcome to today's show, episode number 3 of the Jeet Kune Do debates. As you're logging in, please say where you're logging in from. Well, let me just cut to the chase. The guy who's usually number 1 to log in, right? Somebody is going to win the top spot today because he's here as my debate guest, right? Terry Valler is making his second appearance with me on first appearance on the debates. You were early. I think you were episode. I looked at it the other day. I think it was episode 61.
Yeah, it's like 2018, 2019.
Yeah. So you were one of the early ones in the Jeet Kune Do dialogues, and I think it was Pete Richardson when I announced that you were coming on. I think he made a comment like about time, and I'm thinking about time. This is his return trip, right? But anyhow, Terry, welcome back, and thanks for doing this on short notice. As a matter of fact, people don't know Terry was supposed to be on with me next Friday, but my Brazilian colleague got sent out, and so he couldn't come. And Terry said, "Yeah, let's just do it now." And it is so we should blame Terry. We should blame Michael Perez for this because it's his post, right? It's his post. So I copied what he said, right? And here's what it was, so that everybody understands how this debate got set up. Michael wrote, JKD is about the evolution of the individual in and out of the art. As we should be evolving, so too must the art. Change my mind, which I think is a ripoff of that guy Steven Crowder, who is actually the person that got me started in podcasting about Jeet Kune Do. So anyhow, right? So here's what happened. I made copies of all of this. So Terry said, I'm starting to look at it as 2 separate lines. And that's as much as I read, and I jumped on his case. Right? Because the second that I see the word separate in anything to do with Jeet Kune Do, my alarm bells start going off. So you tell us why you used the word separate and where you were headed with that.
It's a continuous thought process, right? So it changes. Okay.
Okay.
So what I mean by separate between your own personal growth and when you teach it, which is where I think a lot of the confusion comes from when the identity crisis that Chris Kent said a while ago. So to me, I'd say the basis is the Jun Fan or JKD, original JKD, Bruce Lee Jeet Kune Do, Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do, whatever you want to call it. It's under the same guise. So it's slightly different between Instructor, where it's Dan Zhang, Ted Wong, Joe Petit, it goes on, right? But the core stuff's the same. And the philosophy and the principles are the same. So that's kind of almost the base principle, base technical stuff to learn. Once you understand that, and you understand basic trapping, basic kicking, picking, punching, which is the second part of the cultivation, right? So the first part is a punch is a punch, second part is more than a punch, third part it's back to being a punch. And that part is the second part of that cultivation. You're learning what trapping is, learning what kicking is. And then, so that's it. So once you've understood that and you try sparring it, testing it, even technically hitting the pads or doing the drills, you kind of go, well, that doesn't work for me for whatever reason. I might have shorter arms, movability isn't there. So then you start going, okay, what other arts have solutions to these problems? And then also, so then you can start researching and looking for yourself, right? So you got and that's where the principle, everything's based. After that, you start dissolving the art. Okay, and it's then the basic principles and the philosophy of Jeet Kune Do is when it takes over. So okay, so then you dissolve in a Jun Fan and go, well, this works for me, or JKD, whatever you call it. That works for me. Like straight blast might work, the Jit Chung might work, but the cross might work. So because originally it was taught a cross way, so it might be easy to turn it. It depends on the individual, right? The lead round kick or the hook kick, is it called? And then you might go, well, the Thai round kick's good, but as long as it fits into the JKD principles and structure, then then so you evolve yourself. Like, so for example, I do a lot. I like CSW. I think the trapping, the clinch work, I call that, to me, that's trapping, you know. But if there's, for example, say, well, first of all, that'd be my process of going through the JKD stuff, my own personal process for it. But if I was to teach it, if I was to say, right, well, I like the Thai boxing, I like the Thai round kick and the lead front kick from JKD. I like the Wing Chun Pak Sao Lop Sao. I like the overhook and underhook. I like the head clinch. I like a couple of takedowns from Silat, from wrestling, and there's a couple of submissions on the ground, or even getting up from the ground. If I was to teach that, then that's my, and say I got experience from the cage and the doors and the street and I taught that. That's my own process that I'm teaching. So it's no longer, I'm kind of forcing my views on what I'm teaching people. Whereas if you say, right, everyone starts on the basic Jun Fan or JKD, if you want to call it, and then you're naturally going to progress yourself.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to get at anyway.
Okay, so here's the error in your thinking.
Excellent. Okay.
Right? Here's the error in your thinking. What did Bruce Lee teach from? Bruce Lee taught based on whose process?
His own.
Right. That's the answer right there. Bruce Lee taught from his own process. Yeah. That never changes. That never changes. Whoever inherits permission, granted permission, however you want to talk, because you said it yourself, as long as it follows the principles.
Yeah.
As long as it follows the principles. So Bruce Lee taught based on his own experience, based on his own process. Don't you think Bruce Lee taught stuff that he liked and stuff that worked for him?
Absolutely, but
okay. But
it's his thought process, right? So it's his thought process and his, at that time, studying where he got to with his own research in terms of mixing, modifying boxing, wrestling, boxing, and Wing Chun, right?
Right, and then he passed away, unfortunately.
That's where I'd say it's where it fossilized. James Bishop had that. It's like a Venn diagram. I kind of liked some of what he said on his little thing, but on it when he said about an open and closed loop when it comes to philosophy.
Yeah, an open system or a closed system.
Yeah. So as soon as Bruce Lee died, his own personal progress, or where he was taking it, it died. So it changed as soon as he died. It changed, right? So because so
what changed?
Because it doesn't matter who took over. They're a different person. They have a slightly different movement, slight thought process is different, isn't it? It's just they're the principles and the philosophy is the same. Like where we train similar lines, right? Obviously, you've got far more experience, but we train similar lines. But there's going to be differences on how we approach the technical stuff, right? Even if we train the same material, and so whoever took over was going to slightly change it naturally because of body motions, right? But if you say, right, what he taught from, say, 66 to 70, 73, now, depends on who you train with, right? Because that's, again, slightly different. If you have that as a core, you can understand where he was trying to get to, and then it gives you a guide to start progressing on yourself. But if you just jump straight into that pool and go, right, I'm going to develop it for myself, are you not missing a core element of this?
Well, you have to start somewhere, don't you?
Yeah.
Right? You have to start somewhere. I think when I hear you and other guys talk about, and based on the video that you sent me from the clip from the Inasano Definitive series,
Yes.
right? I'll tell you something about even that name. So you want to hear something funny?
Yeah, go for it.
Remember, you know how it's reported that Bruce Lee almost instantaneously regretted naming his art Jeet Kune Do?
Yeah.
You want to I seem to recall that Inasano regretted that that video series was called Definitive.
Yeah. I can understand that.
Yeah, because with Inasano, by the time something gets published and it's made available for sale, he's moved on.
Mm-hmm.
You see? So, likewise, if you get a video of Dan Inasano saying something, whenever it was filmed, well, no, let's do it this way. You sent me that video to to um, to illustrate what point, or to magnify what point.
To clear up what I meant when I wrote what I wrote, because sometimes I write stuff when I'm thinking, because the process can constantly changing. So I would put something out there,
Right.
going, yeah, that's an idea. So it's a thought, right? So it'd be like scientific. So the hypothesis. Let's try that. Let's put that out there.
Yeah.
See what you
Yeah.
get back, and then people are going to shoot it down and go, there's so many holes in it because of this and that. You go, yeah, it's pretty shit. I'd just get rid of that. But so so that's what I do. I put stuff out there and go, and people go, yeah, no, it's crap because of this reason, or it's not solid because of this reason. I go, yeah, that's a good point. It goes in the bin, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But so that is, but the point of putting the video out is just to clarify that approach is written in the book, where it says Jun Fan is the base system to learn and be trained. Jeet Kune Do is a personal process. Okay, that's ad-libbing a little bit, but it's that's my point. That's what I think it is. It's start with the JKD,
Yeah.
evolve yourself. Now, if you're going to teach your own interpretation, sometimes I do 4D with Bob Breen, right? And his
Right.
to me that's JKD, but he came because it's kind of not so much based on Jun Fan. It's a mixture of Thai, Kali, Jun Fan, Silat.
But is it following the principles?
Yes, it is, and to me it is JKD, but it's
right.
But he names it something different because it's his approach, right?
Well, and he's got the right to do that. He's got the permission to do that, right? Yeah. So it's what it. But see, so that's an example of invisible JKD.
Absolutely.
And that's no different, right? That's no different to stories about Dan Lee. Dan Lee hiding his Jeet Kune Do in Tai Chi.
Right.
See, so it's no. So Bob's doing the venerable gentleman that he is doing the same thing that a lot of the elders, the first generation people, did as well.
Yeah.
So I don't look at 4D combat and go, oh well, that's something different. No, that's an expression, right? That's the Bob Breen expression of Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah.
It's not. It's yeah, okay. It is different because Bob Breen is not Bruce Lee. So in that regard, it's different. But it's born, 4D combat is born out of all his experiences. If we dial it back to Bruce Lee, what Bruce Lee ended up doing from year to year was born out of his experiences. And that's what he passed on.
Yeah.
Now, built in to that which he passed on is the understanding that things change. I mean, he wrote about it, right? So now we have the misadventure that he passes away. So of course, his personal process cannot continue because he's dead. But the message of everyone enduring their own personal process because they're involved in Jeet Kune Do, that message should not be lost. That that reality, it shouldn't be ignored. Yeah, Bruce Lee's no longer around. So now, okay, so here's what happens. Inosanto is recognized by most people as the titular head of Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah.
Then for whatever reason, other people come out and they're like, well, I'm doing it my way. So everybody's going to end up with things that are similar, but there's no way that they're going to be identical. Now, if I understand what James Bishop is saying, James Bishop says, if you don't teach exactly what Bruce Lee taught, then you shouldn't call it Jeet Kune Do, because it can only be Jeet Kune Do if it's exactly what he taught.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, I that's a bit I disagree with, but I've spoken to James on private message about that. But the first part does right. It's kind of like a Venn diagram, right? So you got him saying this and this, that is the concept, or the JKD being a free flowing art, but there's a little bit in the middle where it crosses over, where that is the process that Bruce Lee taught his students at that time up to his death. You've then got a base stuff going. This is where the starting point of your own processes. But that it's just a starting point. It's just a base. Once you've understood the basic kicking, punching, trapping, grappling, once you understand what that part of how he blended it and why he blended it, then you can start moving on for yourself, right? And you can dissolve that art. So no longer that's gone back in. That's back in the. You've left that in the other side of the river. While you're traveling down that river out of your own process and picking up.
Why?
That's gone.
Why do we leave that behind? Isn't it still good kicking? Isn't it still good punching? Isn't it still good trapping? Isn't it still good grappling?
Yeah. I mean, okay. As an art, as a rigid system, you've done it, you've learned it, you've resolved it, right?
But there shouldn't be any rigidity in Jeet Kune Do whatsoever. There shouldn't be any. There shouldn't be any rigidity. There shouldn't be any thought of actually, when I finish this, because of an interaction with Richard Torres, I'm gonna post something, but right. I'll reveal it right now, asking you. So there's the famous snapshot of the Bruce Lee day timer, whatever date it was in whatever year, with the words Jeet Kune Do, right? Okay, so raise your hand if you believe that because it appears in his day timer on a particular day in a particular year, that's the first time that it was ever uttered. That's the first time that's the day that it was created. Raise your hand if you believe that picture of the day timer entry is proof of anything.
Not me.
Raise your hand if you believe that.
No.
Right? Doesn't mean anything.
No.
It's not proof of anything. It is proof only that, on a particular day, these words were written on a page. That's it. It ends there. right? So the bone that I pick with you guys is when you start talking about Jun Fan. This is probably the worst one. That Jun Fan is the physical art and Jeet Kune Do is the philosophy or whatever, right? Okay, and I bring that up because on the day, whenever the day was, that Bruce Lee said, okay, we're going to start calling what we do Jeet Kune Do. Here's my question. Did he start teaching something completely different on that day?
No, but luckily we have evidence of that, people, right? With
Okay,
people like
so,
Dan and Chris Kent.
Okay, so he didn't start teaching anything different. So
No.
before he started using the term Jeet Kune Do, it was called the Jun Fan method or Jun Fan Gung Fu or what have you, right?
Yeah.
So for him, during his lifetime, there was no separation. Why are you guys separating it now? And calling it, you know, the Jun Fan is something that's this, but the Jeet Kune Do is something that's this. The Jun Fan is the base system. Oh, I know why y'all do that, because you heard Dan Inosanto say something like that. But what Dan Inosanto said was a bad explanation of what I am now explaining to you. if I may be so bold, right? Right? Because see, but I watched the video that you sent me. I mean, I have the VHS and the DVD of it.
Right.
So I understand what he's saying, right? But I also can identify when he's not as clear as he could be. But just like you said earlier, you'll put something out there on Facebook and then you're thinking, maybe that wasn't the best way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
When Dan Inosanto puts it on video and then that video spreads all over the world and then years later ends up on the internet where everything is forever.
Yeah.
Now we got even more trouble.
Yeah.
You see? So, but now people go, well, he's the authority. And he used the words, Jun Fan is the base art. Yeah, well, of course it's the base art. The base is the thing at the bottom, right? So the thing at the bottom, when you're building, the thing at the bottom is what came first, right? It's the foundation, right? So if on the day that Bruce Lee changed the name of what he was building from Jun Fan to Jeet Kune Do, did anything change other than we now call this thing that we do, this process that we run through, we now call it Jeet Kune Do? What changed? Anything?
Not in that time, no. Not until really, but
right.
Nothing changed until he died.
Well, okay, all right. So what? Okay, so now tell me what you think changed when he died.
The founder died, and so that's it. That's what changed. And then
Bruce Lee was no longer alive.
That's it. So once he's no longer alive, so then.
Then I thought you were saying something changed with the art.
No.
Okay.
There's Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do and there's Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do, right? So there's Bruce Lee's own training of Jeet Kune Do and his own interpretation of what his, and then there's the art of Jeet Kune Do by Bruce Lee. However, so terminology is all over the place, isn't it?
But there you go, separating things again.
Well, yeah, because
isn't it understood? Isn't there a built-in understanding that since you're Terry Valler, since I am Dwight Woods, right? The Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do in which we engage can't possibly be literally Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do because we're not him.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So there's so that's a built-in understanding. So why the need to separate it again in any kind of explanation?
Because from 67 to when end of 73, right, when Bruce Lee died, that his own process of looking at it stopped because he's no longer breathing, right? But Bruce Lee's martial art of Jeet Kune Do lives on. So that there is it's almost, so it's two. How do you? It's terminology, right? So you're saying the same thing for two different things.
Okay,
because it's
stop
the
right
art.
there. Stop right there. When Shigeru Kano died, okay,
Right.
the founder of judo,
Yeah.
what happened? What happened?
His process died.
Did his but we never talk about judo that way, do we? Nobody ever talks about. Does anybody talk about Helio Gracie's process of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu dying when he passed away? Nobody does that. Everybody's like, oh, Helio Gracie's gone. Okay, long live Helio Gracie. Why don't we do that with Bruce Lee?
The jiu-jitsu one's interesting because it has changed, hasn't it? It has changed. It's gone from a self-defense system to a sport, predominantly. Well, it's the most. There's only a few people that teach it.
Is that a change or is that just a spin-off?
It's a change, isn't it? Change in philosophy.
Really?
It was originally a self-defense system, wasn't it? And now
it still is.
It
still is, but the sport aspect of it since 1993 has grown and grown and grown.
That's massive, isn't it?
Yeah. But so is it still not there's karate competition, there's kickboxing competition, there's Muay Thai competition, because in martial art there's self-defense aspect and there's competition aspect.
Yeah,
it's just a spin-off. It's not I mean, yeah, and sport is always going to be more popular, right?
Yeah.
That because it's more exciting than that's why they're I mean, that's why you can't have a self-defense competition because that's not the nature of self-defense. So it's just a spin-off. It's not a different Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
No. But like jiu-jitsu is very much like JKD because everyone's got their own style within themselves, right? Because if you look at
because everybody's an individual.
Yeah.
So but Paul Vunak has an individual, right? Yeah. Puts the name PFS to what he does.
Yeah.
Okay. But is Paul Vunak drastically changing the nature of anything that he learned? No. So Bob Breen, the venerable old gentleman, I love him to death, right? He puts the name 4D combat because 4D in his mind, 4D is a good way to express what he's thinking. In the time of Bruce Lee, Jeet Kune Do was a good way for Bruce Lee to express what he was thinking. He happened to be the founder. You see, so it's the same thing. So Bob's doing the same thing. Paul's doing the same thing that Bruce Lee did. Bruce Lee just did it before they did, and they are now descendants of Bruce Lee. But they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So there is no separation the way I look at it.
Right.
You see?
Yeah.
Right? But I don't know if we beat that horse to death yet about because think about this. Give me your take on this. When the Kimuras refer to Jun Fan Gung Fu, they're talking about something that is in a time capsule, are they not?
Yeah.
Right? They're not talking about that which Bruce Lee continued to do under the same name but with changes that ultimately he renamed Jeet Kune Do. Agreed?
Yep.
Right? Because their structure is different.
Yes.
So when you guys talk about Jun Fan, do you think when Inasano talks about Jun Fan Gung Fu as the base art, do you think he is referring to the Seattle stuff?
I think he's referring to it all. I think it's the whole evolution. As far as I understand it, again, I'm not the expert on it, but he teaches it from the whole stuff, the whole art, right? From the whole evolution of Bruce Lee's, from Seattle down to LA. That is what, as far as I understand it.
I beg to differ.
Right.
I beg to differ. See, because everything in Seattle, all the schools had the same name.
Yeah.
Right? All the schools had the same name. But by his own admission, Taki Kimura says, Dan is the guy. Right? Bruce Lee in his own writing said, Inasano has less time than Kimura or James Lee, but he met me in the midst of my evolution.
Yeah.
Right? And then by his own writings, he says, Bruce Lee says, when I get together with Taki and James, I try to get them to walk the pathless path. So Inasano was the recipient of a more expanded way of thinking, but it occurred where? It occurred at the Jun Fan Gung Fu Institute, Los Angeles Chinatown branch. So it's still called Jun Fan Gung Fu, even though it's a different animal than Jun Fan Gung Fu in Seattle. That's what Inasano is referring to. I don't believe Inasano is referring to everything from 1959, 1960, all the way up. I don't think that's what he's referring to at all.
Right.
Because if we're going to separate anything, I think that's what we could separate. I'm not suggesting that we should, because there is no reason to divorce ourselves from Seattle. There's no reason. So that's not what I'm suggesting. But I am proposing that when Inasano uses the term Jun Fan Gung Fu, he's talking about that which we did before the name change.
Right.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. So the other thing that so let's talk about fossilization, right?
Right. Okay.
Because I said that at the beginning. Anytime I hear the word or the idea of separate anything, right, the alarm bells go off. So definitely an alarm bell should go off if we fossilize, which to me means classicalize. So here's my question for you. When you guys talk about the 66, 67 curriculum and whatever, what the heck are y'all talking about?
Well, again, it depends on what instructor you go to, right? So that would be what they were taught by Bruce Lee and Dan and the Summit, right?
Says who?
Sorry?
Says who?
General, maybe certain people, maybe.
Has anybody ever seen a representation of Bruce Lee's 66, 67 curriculum?
I'd say it's what is taught, right? From Dan, from Ted Williams.
Has anybody ever seen it?
Does it exist?
Does
the curriculum?
I'm asking you.
Well, has
anybody ever seen it?
No. But we've
right?
seen.
But we hear
students,
people.
Right?
We hear people talking about the Seattle curriculum, the Oakland curriculum, and even just a couple of weeks ago, I think it was Leaf Robeck printed the Chinatown. Was it Chinatown? Yeah, the Chinatown curriculum.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, And I cautioned him somewhat. I mean, not cautioned, but I commented that, well, we should explain that that did not come from Bruce Lee.
Mm-hmm.
That curriculum is a compilation of memories of a bunch of the LA guys at a nucleus gathering.
Right.
Okay. So I don't know that I mean, I got no problem with they call it whatever they want. But when you put that out there, make sure that you explain to people, oh, go to Tommy Gong's book and you can find it there.
Yeah, it's an awesome book. I love that book.
Oh, it's a great book. See, and this is the thing, right? See, this is the thing. The idiots in Jeet Kune Do think that if I say something like that, oh, we should mention that this thing that is presented as the Los Angeles curriculum comes from Tommy Gong's book and is a collection of memories from whatever. They think that I am criticizing it. I'm not. I'm saying this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
When I do that, I'm being Richard Torres, right? I'm making sure that people don't rewrite history. Right? But notice how the difference between me and Richard Torres is that I don't assign any nefarious reasons for people doing what they did. He does. He likes to go, oh, well, this guy did this because of this and because of, how the hell does he know? He wasn't there. He doesn't even know these people. Right? Okay, right? So yeah, so I try to stick to, well, it's a fact. So again, I've never seen, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I'm just saying I've never seen anything that we could say definitively comes from Bruce Lee as a curriculum.
No, but it would be, I said the only way you could class that would be from his students, from whether it's from Gu Dan, from Sifu Petit, Ted Wong, because they teach certain things, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. That would be whoever's your preferred method and instructor. That is the base. But and then you can evolve yourself naturally, right? Because obviously there's no set curriculum. Even if there was at one stage, it's definitely passed, isn't it? But
well, there was no set curriculum. What there was a set of guiding principles. So the idea. So let's say the idea is this. All right, we got to develop effective kicking. We got to become proficient in kicking. How do we do this?
How do we do it?
Yeah. How do we do this?
Reps. Mat time.
Right. Okay. But let's say that this is the early 1960s and we are seeking to learn. Let's say that we came up in Wing Chun, and so we only know a certain way to kick.
Right.
But we know that there are other Gung Fu systems that do not kick. They have different types of kicking. Mm-hmm. And we want to become proficient, right, in kicking. So what do?
Go train with them.
We go, yeah, right? Well, maybe in the 1960s, we couldn't go train with them, but maybe somebody had a book, right? Or maybe somebody knew somebody, or maybe you could find a way to spy on their class or whatever it is, right? But we got to go looking somewhere, mm-hmm. Right? Okay. So what if in the late 1970s you discover another way of kicking because somebody hits you with a rare round kick from Muay Thai.
Right. Okay.
And you've never experienced that. But you've been working on kicking, mm-hmm. But you've never experienced a kick like this.
Right.
What are you supposed to do now? Ignore it? Pretend that it doesn't exist?
Well, no, because that would you would learn it, absorb it, right, and then put it into your structure. But that would be your own process, right? Because even
No.
even around Thai round kick was slightly different for everyone, how they hips work. You know, there's
Well,
a certain
yeah,
structure, but obviously, you know, so just
yeah. It's going to. But see, okay. But now here's the thing, right? See, I think what we don't talk about enough is how things disappear into Jeet Kune Do.
right.
You see, because that rear round kick, thrown the Thai boxing way, violates the Jeet Kune Do structure because it's a completely different. It's a completely different fighting position. Let's say,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so we can't adopt it wholesale.
No.
So that's where we apply the smart people apply the principle of absorb what is useful, right?
Yeah.
Right. The other ones, I'm not so sure, right? It's like, oh, but Bruce didn't do any time, Oh, no, wait. Here's what they'll say. They'll say, oh, well, Bruce was able to observe the pros and cons of Thai boxing, right? Yeah, whatever, right? You want real observation? Get hit with the bloody kick, and that will teach you, right? A lot faster and a lot more than observation of it.
Yeah, especially from a book, right?
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, anybody who says, "Oh, yeah, you get you," but I guess, right. I just thought of this. Maybe if you say that Bruce Lee could have learned more or better from actual participation, maybe you're being what's the word? Um, Maybe you're being insulting towards Bruce Lee because you're not recognizing his genius.
Wow. I think
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I,
I think
I, I think I think some people think that's what it is.
I mean I read this Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu book, the university, oh God, it's something BJJ University, I don't know if it's called, and it's good, it's great, and it's got certain sections on blue belt, but you go try use that in a BJJ sparring session, you're gonna get smashed. You got to be in there, and you got to feel it. It's a difference. So it doesn't matter how
Right,
good and smart you are.
right.
You have to feel it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's no way that Bruce Lee didn't understand that himself. It's absolutely no way he didn't understand that himself. Right. So okay. So wait, what was that? What do you mean? Oh, okay. Yes. So I wanted to ask you this because you said um, JKD definitely lives on with everyone who trains it,
Hmm.
possibly improves it. I don't know why you said possibly. So it deals with modern problems.
Political correctness. I think that's what it was. Let's go with that, shall we?
Right? Yeah. But I wanted to know, yeah, I want to know what is this? What do you mean by let their evolution happen naturally?
Well, what am I about going back to earlier? So that example, so I go right. Okay, so let's say I've got experience in Thai boxing, wrestling, JKD, Kali, Silat, right, judo, Japanese jiu-jitsu. So I say, right, these are the best things. I'm going to put this together as a curriculum and teach it. Go, right, guys, this is it. This is what you need to know. And whereas really, what I mean is, what should happen was it should be going right. Whatever your base is. So I always think, let's just say a JKD is a base, however that looks.
Okay.
Okay. Then once people have understood it technically, and they're sparring it and they're drilling it in drills and they're sparring it, they will that's your testing ground. That's so hypothesis this, right? Okay, so that's Jun Fan or JKD or whatever you want to call it. So you try it. So then you're testing it. and your results are coming from there. So you'll then go, right, well, okay, this works, but I can't seem to make this work. I can't, so then, okay, or I'm being taken down, or whatever the problem is, because there's always going to be continuous problems every time you test it, right? So they naturally go, right, okay, I'm finding this a problem. Whereas if you're saying, right, I'm going to teach you this, and this, it's almost you're going, right, this is what works for me, this is what you're having, rather than going, right, here's the base art, learn it, or base material, or whatever you want to call it, learn it, try it, spar it, and then work out from there what you need to do. So that's where I don't class JKD, original JKD, Jun Fan, whatever you want to call it, as a separate thing to the JKD process. It's the same thing. It's just the base in which you start. It's just the first step. Then once you've got that, then you're evolving yourself, right? So you're already breaking that system down and what works for you. Absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, right? From that, and then you add in what's useful for yourself in other arts, without going against the principles and the philosophy and the structure, obviously.
So we're talking process.
Yes, it's a constant process, isn't it?
Right.
Even from day one.
Yeah. Okay. So at the start of this process, at the very start of this process, see, because I understand for like if you're running a school, you want to have you want to have different programs, right? That at your school, so you have separate this and separate that and separate the next. I understand all that, right? I did that somewhat, but we had three programs. We had a separate Muay Thai program.
Yeah.
Actually, well, I shouldn't even say that. We had two programs. We had a Jeet Kune Do program and a Muay Thai program.
Right.
We had a Muay Thai program because there were people in the area who were not interested in anything but Muay Thai.
Okay. So
we had a separate Muay Thai program, right?
Okay.
Plus, we were bringing Ajahn Chai for seminars. So I was like, why did I remember probably after the first couple of years that we brought him, I was like, why are we bringing him for seminars and we don't even have a program? So we started a separate Muay Thai program, and then it started to become popular, and so people came to train just that. They had no interest in anything else.
Yeah.
The other program was the Jeet Kune Do program, and the Jeet Kune Do program was broken into phases, and the way it was sold, so to speak, is that Jeet Kune Do is a martial art method that emphasizes well-roundedness. So if you're going to be well-rounded as a martial artist, you got to train empty hands and you got to train weaponry.
Yeah.
You see? So we had an empty hands class, we had a weaponry class, and then on Saturdays, those two came together.
Right.
You see? So it was like, okay, so in this class, we're teaching you A, B, and C. In this class, we're teaching you D, E, and F. And then on Saturdays, A, B, C, D, E, and F are coming together so that you understand, right, how they become integrated. So that's where, for us, Kali disappeared into Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah.
You see? Because did you see Eric's T-shirt on one of those videos that he put out that says, "It's all Jeet Kune Do to me"?
Yes.
Yeah, right? Yeah. But okay, but now I think I'm safe in saying this. I don't like what Eric is putting out. Not because it's not good. It's better than most. And please, people, don't get me wrong. I am not saying that Eric Paulson can't do whatever the hell it is that he wants to do. But when I see Eric Paulson doing the Wing Chun trapping, here's what I see. I see a genius guy conforming to expectations. I'm not seeing, in my opinion, the real Eric Paulson.
Okay. So I see it a little bit differently, but yeah, okay.
Yeah. What he's doing, he's showing what everybody else could show.
Yeah.
He's showing that, and he should know that material, of course, because we all have the same background. But that's not the real Eric Paulson. The real Eric Paulson, right, is a guy that is not going to be limited to Pak Sao Lap Sao, right? The way everybody else does Pak Sao Lap Sao. Because his brain doesn't work that way.
Right.
So I put in a comment, I wish he would just go, right? Have a guy swing at him, right? Do something from the trapping, but just be Eric Paulson. Don't be, right, anybody else in the JKD world that puts out a video on the trapping sequences, the 66 to 67 trapping material.
Yeah. I think it just seems to me he's just having fun. I mean, rather than trying to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not saying that he's not having fun, right? I'm just saying I wish that to me, of course he's having fun, and yeah, right? But I don't need to see that from Eric, because he's so much more capable of so much stuff, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point he took that basic material and he worked some ridiculous stuff out of it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised to find that out. Show that stuff.
Yeah.
Don't show what I could, because if you show that stuff and you've been with Dan and Asano for 40 years, there's a guy who just got his 4th year apprentice instructor certificate from Dan and Asano. He could show that same material.
Yeah.
Right? You see? Because people have started to think that, well, this is the stuff. This fixed material is the stuff. It's not the stuff.
No.
That fixed material, look at it. Look at it. It was based on a particular time.
Yeah.
It's not for today. Aspects of it work today in self-defense, in combat sport, whatever. But when you do the fossilized stuff, what's the point? That's my question for you. What's the point of the fossilized stuff?
Wow. That's a tough, isn't it? That's a one. I'd say one to keep. We're lucky in JKD, I think, in terms of the founders developed the art on film. It's on film, it's in notes. You know, it's whereas if you go to karate, judo, Japanese jiu-jitsu, no, we don't have that, do we? We're kind of we're a little bit lucky that we have the founder on film discussing JKD via films or interviews or whatever. So
yeah,
it's good to have that as a thing. It's kind of it's little box, isn't it? Whether you want to. But I say it's good to have. We don't have to use it, but it's good to have. It's nice. It's available, so why not have it?
Well, shouldn't we look at it, understand why it came to be, how it came to be, what questions it answered, what problems it solved during its time, and ask ourselves if we still have those problems that still need to be solved. Or is everybody fighting the same way?
Yeah, I think the real crux of it is it's good kicking. It's good. It gives you a good basics in kicking, punching, Wing Chun trapping rather than just trapping. I class wrestling as trapping, and a little bit of grappling, right? Because there's a few blocks and stuff. But it gives you a base. Now, whether you and that's it. So once you've got a good base in kicking, punching, trapping, and grappling, right? So 4 skills of anti-hand combat, which is something I kind of like. I like the free rangers, but I've definitely nicked that off you, by the way. So thanks for that.
Oh, I thought it sounded familiar.
Yeah, so I was like, when you said that before, I mean, I learned so much from, to be honest with you, just all the dialogues from different people. Because you just say, oh, I like that, I'm going to nick that.
Yeah.
You know, just chatting stuff off everybody, really. But I just think it's it. So, like I say, whether you call it Jun Fan JKD, whether you call it the original JKD, whether you call it Jun Fan Gung Fu, it's the core essential between all of them is you get good basic kicking, punching, trapping, and maybe a little bit of grappling, depends on who you're with. It gives you a foundation, doesn't it? So, and then you just evolve from that. So but when I say 2 lines, it's how people teach it. You know what I mean? It's a difference between your own process, and it's a difficult one because it's like. I remember listening to Alex Alex, the Wing Chun guy, the Kung Fu Genius guy.
Yeah, Richter. Yeah,
that's it. Sorry, Alex. But he did he did a podcast, and the question was about Jeet Kune Do, and he said that he did a Jeet Kune Do course in I think the 80s, possibly. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember? And he said that he did a 1 week on Salat, 1 week on Thai, 1 week on Savat, and whatever the other ones were.
Yeah.
So if the problem with that is there's no basis there, is it? It's just maybe it's just a test. I don't know who the guy was or what he was doing, but there's no base there. Right. You need a good base before you move on, or like a house, right? Otherwise it's just going to fall to pieces. So whatever you want to call it, let's just call it JKD. The JKD is the original JKD, the Jun Fan JKD. They call it Jun Fan JKD for now, right? The Jun Fan JKD gives you.
I don't use that term. You know that? I don't use that term.
I like that term. I just think it's kind of like making from both because why? Because I think I don't know. What's the best way of putting it? It's what I call the base system. I think really. That's it.
Yeah, I don't like that term. Right? You know why?
Okay.
Bruce never used it. The art is Jeet Kune Do, man. The art is Jeet Kune Do. There's enough confusion, complication, right? Complexity and what have you, to now have to now we named it, right? No, it's Jeet Kune Do, and I'm done there.
Okay.
Right. I mean, I get, because I am a Dan Inosanto student, I guess I am a Jeet Kune Do concepts guy. I guess I've trained in Muay Thai. I've trained in Boxe Française. I've trained in Silat. I've trained in Kali. I guess these are the things that I mean, I borrowed the term associated disciplines, right? To describe those arts. So I guess that makes me a Jeet Kune Do concepts guy, but I don't refer to myself as Jeet Kune Do. I don't teach Jeet Kune Do concepts. I don't refer to myself as a Jeet Kune Do concepts guy. I'm a Dan Inosanto student, proudly so.
Yeah, it's just a Jeet Kune Do guy, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. See, the best thing that came out, so that Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do thing came out of the nucleus. The best thing that came out of, right? I believe it was Shannon Lee who came up with the name, right? And everybody's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we'll use that to identify whatever and whatever," right? Okay, fine, no problem. the best thing to me that came out of the nucleus was the declaration that there is no difference between original and concepts. That was the best thing that came out of the nucleus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Right.
But nobody ever talks up that declaration. It's in print, but nobody ever talks it up. You see? Because if you talk it up, what do you got? You got unity. And well, if we all agree, then there's no fighting, so there's no drama.
Yeah.
You see? So yeah, right? So if we have people who think that there's this thing called Jun Fan, and it's the base art, and then from the base art, you go to this thing which is called Jeet Kune Do, which is your personal process or whatever. Now we have division. Now we can have drama. That's why I say cancel the freaking drama. It's natural evolution, right? Yeah. When you go from being an infant to being a young child, to being an adolescent, to being a young adult, to being an old fart, you're the same person, but you've evolved. Hopefully you're smarter, you're wiser because you've had experiences. That is Jeet Kune Do. Yeah. So Jeet Kune Do is the base art. Jeet Kune Do is the basics. Jeet Kune Do is the intermediate. Jeet Kune Do is the advanced. Jeet Kune Do is the very advanced. It's all Jeet Kune Do. There is no need. I understand why my teacher said it. I get it because I understand what he's trying to do. I understand what he's trying to put out there, but it's not the clearest explanation of anything.
I mean, inside the explanation, because to counter the fact that people were doing, I know, karate, judo, and Japanese jiu-jitsu and calling that Jeet Kune Do, was that the way to counter that issue?
No, that wasn't. No, that particular statement that he made wasn't in regards to something like that, right? The thing about outsiders, see, you know, like how the moderators of a Facebook group cannot control, let's say there was somebody named Mick Tully who is like a troll par excellence. You know how they can't control him? Right? So in the martial art world, you can't control people whose idea is that Bruce Lee mixed different arts and called it Jeet Kune Do. Mm-hmm. So in their ignorance, at their Taekwondo school or whatever school, or maybe it's a guy who knows more, right? He's the proverbial one-eyed guy in the land of the blind, and he's smart and he's articulate and he's charismatic. He has the wrong idea about what Jeet Kune Do is, but he did train in judo at some point, and then he trained in some kung fu, and then he liked the kicking from Taekwondo, right? So he trained in those three, and then he got the idea that when you put three arts together, you can call it Jeet Kune Do because that's what Bruce Lee did. We can't control that. No. There's no way. There's too many people in the world, so we can't control that.
We can educate, right?
Exactly. You can do your best to educate people as to what really is. Now, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is that in Jeet Kune Do, we have the lack of unity and we have the drama and we have the separation. So it becomes more difficult to educate because I can educate people to the best of my ability. And then there's a guy that will say, well, Dwight is an idiot. You know, so now people, right? But this is the thing, see, this is where the concept of doing your own work, see, because everybody has to educate themselves. Are we frozen?
You are. I'm not sure.
I am. You're not, right?
No, okay. I don't think so.
Okay. But you can still hear me. even
I
though
can
the
hear you.
image
Yeah,
is
no
frozen?
worries.
All right. I'll give
You're
it a
back.
second to yeah, I'll give it a second to see if it kicks back in or not. Right? Okay, so it kicked back in. Now it didn't. I think my I think the server just yeah, because I got a little warning thing here. I think the server in you.
It's gone. Hopefully, it's back soon. Or was it a bit awkward? Oh, it's back. Good, because it's really awkward. Silence.
Two. Okay. All right. Okay. Can you hear me?
I can. Hang on. Welcome back.
Yeah, my internet crapped out for a second. All right. Okay. So now I'm gonna say something a little bit a little, and again, this is tongue in cheek. This is not 100% serious or what have you, right? But I'm telling you that if you have people of the Ted Wong lineage saying something like "you've come to your senses," you're going down the wrong path.
Yeah, I hope I love them guys. I do, and stuff, but I do hope I cleared that up after that was said. Because let's be honest, I train on the I train with the Dan and Sentinel line and the Jerry Petite line. That's the two lines I train, and they're very similar, I think, in terms of what their approaches are. But then I will be going to see Cross, who's in apologies for the name, but going down to Devon for a couple of days just to experience it.
Of course.
Because I think and I think it's good to go and have a go.
Of course.
That's one thing I've never done and I've never trained with Ted Wong, so I don't know his system.
Yeah.
So gonna go down and spend a couple of days with him when I can.
Right. So that's why I'm not being serious when I say that. Right. Okay. I'm not being serious when I say that. Everybody's got a voice. Everybody has a valid everybody has a voice. I was going to say everybody has a valid opinion. Not always, because some people the thing that distresses me is when people try to pass their opinions off as fact. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You see, that's the problem. Right. So the thing, getting back to the idea of the fixedness, the fixed nature of things, right? During his time, we've heard Inosanto say that one week Bruce Lee would be doing it this way, the next week he would have changed it completely, right? We've heard him say that. Yeah. Okay, so are we supposed to operate on the basis of that? Well, Bruce Lee was the genius and he was the founder, so it's okay for him to do that. But the material we got up until he died, even though he might have changed it, we're not him, so we can't change it. Is that how we're supposed to be operating?
No, but
there's a but.
Yeah, no, we're not operate like that. But yeah, there is a but, and I'm really kind of trying how to put this out. But I guess it's up to the person, right? Whether they want to use Jun Fan as a base, whether they use. I mean, okay, so like, I personally like to use the Jun Fan JKD as a base. I mean, I do it with Bob Breen. I do it with Mars. I do it with Fran Petit. That I'll get a good overall, right? I mean, my own training. I like to do. I know you don't like forms, but I like to do the JKD dummy sets and the Umung form just for me, because it's just a way to get. I wouldn't teach them, but that's for me to get a good structure, making sure I keep the techniques.
Yeah,
you know.
I'll tell you something. There's some stuff in the Ung Moon form. You know what it works really well with? Penjak Silat.
Yeah.
Works really well with Penjak Silat, right? Okay.
I mean, I do the Umung on a dummy because I think it's better on a dummy, but that's just
the way I do it. But I mean, look, again,
I might be talking crap. I don't know, to be fair.
Well, no. So here's the thing, right? So look, the importance of the personal journey cannot be overstated in Jeet Kune Do, right? The problem is when you go, the Ung Moon form is a part of Jeet Kune Do. That is not true. Okay?
No.
Now, it worked its way in. It was adopted by some people. It was frowned upon by other people. So it's a personal thing. If you get something out of it, you get something out of it. But it's when anybody tries to set it up as, you know, and go, oh, it came from Bruce Lee. That is not true. So don't say that. Right? Because if you go, okay, what did Bruce Lee have to say about forms? You deal with that. You don't have to, it's okay to say, well, Bruce Lee himself was not a big fan at one point, you know, at one point maybe he was, at another point he wasn't. This thing worked its way into the world of Jeet Kune Do. Some people find it useful, other people do not. But what's wrong with saying that?
That's it. That's
right.
what it is, isn't it?
So if you want to use it, you use it, right? But then if somebody else says, well, no, don't say that it's a Jeet Kune Do form, because it's not a Jeet Kune Do form. You got to explain yourself when you're going to make claims like that. So when you use it on the dummy, okay, you say it works better
for me because there's a resistance, right? So if you do the bong cell, at least you've got a structure.
Okay. And you know the Wing Chun set as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't sound so hot on it anymore, but I did know the Wing Chun. You mean the Jun Fan sets or the Wing Chun?
Right. So apparently, that which is called the Jun Fan dummy set is the Wing Chun 108, right?
They're mixed around. They're not in the right. Well, they're mixed around from the original one that I learned anyway.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah. So and then okay. So what's your understanding about the JKD dummy set? Like the origin of the JKD dummy set? What's your understanding of
that? Well, I've heard stories. I've heard it that go down was watching Bruce on a dummy and write it down. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's one story. To be honest with you, I couldn't really care. I like him. I think they're good. So I'm just going, yeah, that works for me.
Yeah.
I use them because I don't. Sometimes I'm a bit of I've got no friends, so that I don't. There's no. Sometimes there's no one I train with in the day or the evening. It depends where I am and what I'm doing.
Right.
So
yeah.
Yeah, I take the dummy to work with me. I did anyway.
Yeah. Again, right. I think that there's a danger in Jeet Kune Do because it is such an open system that it's so open, it's open to misinterpretation. It's open to misrepresentation, right? So I forget who it was that said it. You don't want to be so open-minded that your brains fall out. You see, right? And because we don't have the imposition on us of the way a traditional art has stuff imposed. It's like you can't study Shotokan and start with any kata other than Heian Shodan. That's where you start. No matter where in the world you are, that's where you start. A guy who says, nah, I'm not doing that, he will be excommunicated from Shotokan. You see? Right? Yeah. But we have that luxury in JKD. There's nothing in JKD that says that you must start at kicking and punching, that you must start at that. You could start with the bloody grappling if you want to.
Yeah, you could.
Right?
Absolutely.
You could. You better have a really well thought out reason and a well developed structure for doing it. But you could start there if you wanted to. Of course you can. Right? Just make sure you don't ignore the other aspects of combat, because then you're not being well-rounded. Right? And that's where intelligence plays a role in Jeet Kune Do, because it's such an open system. If the people involved in it are not smart, then unfortunately the art is going to suffer. It's kind of like it's kind of like I'll say something politically incorrect, but it's kind of like when one black person messes up and it reflects on all black people. That is not something I believe, but that kind of thing exists out there in the world, where you have an idiot who judges an entire group of people based on a couple of individuals. That will happen in JKD, right? Somebody will see, and the thing about it is that there are people inside of Jeet Kune Do that will do that to other Jeet Kune Do people. Forget outsiders. People inside JKD will criticize other JKD people because of whatever. All right, it's ridiculous, but that's the world we live in. So okay, so I wanted to ask you this, right? So let's say that a jazz musician writes a song and performs it, and the song becomes so popular, it becomes a standard, it becomes a jazz standard. So then other people in the jazz world record it as well. They perform it as well, right?
Yeah.
Let's say that it's a standard jazz, but then a Latin jazz artist, he gets a hold of it and he writes a composition. So now the classic jazz standard now has a Latin flavor to it. Right? But that's done by a different guy. Okay? But let's say that the same guy, the original composer, because of his own evolution, he sometime later writes a different version of his original composition. At what point are they all the same song or not the same song?
So I suspect the chords are the same, right? It'd be the time and the rhythm that would be different, right?
Uh-huh.
And example, I don't know much about jazz, but Wonderwall by Oasis, right? So written by Noel Gallagher, has a certain standard to it, so but then he modifies it himself, and he's different key, different timing, different rhythm, and then there's I want to say James Bay, but I don't know if that's a director, a film director or singer. I think it's a singer. I think James Bay. I think he did one.
Yeah.
And completely different.
Michael Bay is the director.
Well, yeah, he's a bit of a druggie, that guy, but
don't tell anyone. Hey, he's a Miami guy.
Okay, I liked him. I thought he was a laugh, but a little bit. But anyway, different subjects. But yeah, so yeah, I mean, it's still the same song, isn't it? It's just a different, different take on it. But I look at it like at the JKD, for example. So obviously, there's some groups that say JKD is just what Bruce Lee did, and they try and do JKD, the principles and stuff, and trying to define it for themselves and that, which is great. I don't mind. I think that's good. It's not the way I go, but that's to me, it's like I don't have an issue with that. I think that's good. And then they've got stuff that I'd like to pick up. So
yeah.
That's what
Look, I'd probably come off as somebody who doesn't agree. Well, no, I am someone who does not agree with the statement Jeet Kune Do is only what Bruce Lee did. I probably come off as somebody who doesn't agree. So here's the thing, right? The reason why I don't agree with that is because of my take on Bruce Lee's thoughts, Bruce Lee's way of thinking about martial art. Okay? That's why I don't agree. But what people believe when they hear that you don't agree with that statement, they think automatically, people like anybody with the initials RT, they think immediately that what you're saying is that you have to go outside of Jeet Kune Do to understand it. And you have to bring other stuff into Jeet Kune Do. And that is not true. There is so much stuff to do with, let's call it the Bruce Lee material. There's so much stuff to work on developing. It's ridiculous. But the idea that if you go outside of Bruce Lee material to find something that is personally suitable and bring it back into the Bruce Lee material, and it fits in with the Bruce Lee material, it's not Jeet Kune Do because it's not what Bruce Lee did. It's not exactly what Bruce Lee did, right? Specific technique or whatever, but philosophically, it is what Bruce Lee did because Bruce Lee went outside of Wing Chun, right, to find stuff, okay? Because there's no way that he developed his kicking ability by sticking to Wing Chun. It's obvious that he had to have trained or observed or something else in order to develop the sidekick that he could perform, because that's not a Wing Chun technique. He certainly didn't get it from boxing, that sidekick. He certainly didn't get it from fencing, right? So he went outside of Wing Chun, boxing, and fencing to get stuff. When you see Bruce Lee grapple in Game of Death, what is that, fencing? Is it boxing? Is it Wing Chun? No, obviously he went beyond. He went outside. So a follower of Bruce Lee's who goes outside of Bruce Lee's stuff, what is a heretic? He's being sacrilegious. How dare he go outside? How dare he follow the example of the founder? How dare he not follow the example of the founder? Is that what's going on?
I asked that question to on the I love Jeet Kune Do to Lama Davis and Richard Torres, and I said, if as long as if you can't pull something off because of injury and you take it out and you put something that works for you in there, as long as it stays with the structure and the principles, is it still Jeet Kune Do? And they both said on the forum somewhere, they said yes. Now I might be completely wrong, but that's what I read. So I was like, okay, that's what they said in the comments. I was like, okay, that's cool, and then I left it at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like
I have seen Lamar Davis do stuff, right? And I go, well, maybe he doesn't call it Beset Luar, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't call it Kenjit, but he's doing exactly what I have seen Pendekar Paul de Tours do.
The body moves in certain ways, right?
Okay, he's doing exactly what I've seen Paul de Tours do. I've seen Cass Magda do it. I've seen Dan Inasano do it. I've seen Burton Richardson do it, and Lamar does it on a Jeet Kune Do tape. So I don't light up the internet going, oh, Lamar Davis is doing Penchak Silat and calling it Jeet Kune Do. There's no need for that, right? Because I understand that the body moves, like you said, the body moves in different in certain ways. So to pull off what you need to pull off, that's what you do.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, again, Bruce Lee said it cinematically. If it can help you to defend yourself in a fight, you should do it.
Yeah, right.
It's as simple as that. So it can come from anywhere.
For us, right? So let's say see that, right? We both do see that, even obviously you're obviously a much higher level. So I like to see that for the if they're standing and I'm on the ground, which has happened a few times, whether it's been hit or whether you slipped on dance floors or in a cage, or it happens, right? Maybe too many often for my liking, but it's happened. So there's certain stuff in Sealat and BJJ that work for me to deal with that situation. But you're a different body type, right? So you'd find different things to work, different techniques maybe for that situation, even though it's the same art and we're looking at the same thing. So
or I might find but I might find that the stuff that works for you works for me too. Because what if the stuff that works for you is smarter, right? Than the stuff right? What if it is? Then I'm an idiot for thinking, well, Terry and I are a different body type, so I have to have something different from him. Hell no. No. It's what works. And what works is what works. Right? Yeah. Now, there are going to be modifications. Of course, there have to be modifications because we are not the same body type. But there might not be. There might not have to be any modification. And then here's the funny thing. I guarantee you, the Sealat and the BJJ guy, right, look at what we're talking about right now, and they see similarities. And then along comes the Capoeira guy, and he goes, we do that too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You see, right? Why? Because the human body can only move certain ways. And Bruce Lee himself said that. But because, see, even though Bruce Lee said that, and everybody has seen the interview, but because Bruce Lee never studied BJJ, he never studied Silat, and he never studied Capoeira, if you apply the principle of what we know Bruce Lee was about, years later, you're wrong. Because he didn't do it. You see?
Did he study Silat though? Did he not look in?
I wouldn't go so far as to say that he studied it, but obviously, right? Because Joseph Powell sent me the Silat stuff because I don't think James Bishop had a source for some of the grappling stuff.
Right.
And Joe Powell up in Palm Beach sent it to me, and I sent it. I think I posted it and I sent it to James as well, right? Or I posted it and James saw it, and it's out of a Draeger Silat book.
I mean, studying is variation, right? You can studying can mean reading 3 books, or it can mean studying the art. So he obviously must have looked into it.
Whatever, but look, here's what we know: he saw it, and he must have thought something positive about it, that he traced it into his own notes. I don't think he would be in the habit of tracing into his personal notes, right? Stuff that he didn't think, highly of. Right.
No.
I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's what I don't think that's what he would have done. Right. So anyhow, okay, let me see what else I have in my notes that I can pick a fight with you about.
Okay, good.
Right. I'm saying that. Yeah. So I'm still there. Okay. Let's finish up with this.
Okay. Is it going to be an easy question?
Well, it's along the theme. It's along the theme of what we've been discussing the whole time, right? It's along the same theme. The teaching of the art. Okay. You're not being honest if you know that there is viable stuff out there, but you can't pull it off, so you don't teach it and you pretend that it doesn't exist.
Right.
Right? You're not being honest. If you couch that in, well, that's not the original material, that's crap.
Right.
You see? That's crap, right? An honest Jeet Kune Do instructor would do one of two things: get some knowledge of it, right? Or admit that you don't have any knowledge of it. See, because you mentioned the whole thing about teaching your personal expression, right? That it's not Jeet Kune Do if you're teaching from your personal. And I think you're saying that because, in fact, let me see if I find it. You said that there are guys who don't teach. Let me see if I can find it. Right. You said there are a few that don't teach dumb tech. They don't teach the straight blast. They don't teach the inverted kick. Right? You remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So why don't they teach it? Do you know? These people who don't.
Why don't they teach it? Some, for various reasons, couldn't they? Maybe they weren't shown it. Maybe they don't like it. Maybe either they've not shown it or they don't like it. Got to be one of the two reasons.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
See,
I don't know what one, and it's up to the
right.
I guess they can have the answer to that.
Yeah. See, because I don't understand why somebody would not teach something that you could find in the list of techniques. You know what I mean? You could find it in the list of techniques. Let me ask you this. Have you ever, because this has to do with curriculum and what have you, right? Okay.
Right.
Have you ever tried to find the list of boxing combinations that Bruce Lee taught or that Bruce Lee practiced or whatever?
Have I ever tried to?
Yeah. You ever tried to find them?
No, not I can think of. Maybe a few years ago, but nothing in recent memory.
The only thing I can find beyond basic 2-count stuff is the 1, 2, 3, which I imagine was jab, cross, hook. That's it.
Yeah, I would have thought so when it made sense.
Right? There's no, so anything that comes after that. I didn't tell you this. I saw a version of the Oakland curriculum that had the jab cross counter series on it.
Oh,
I saw that one time. A version of the Oakland curriculum that had the jab cross, the 1, 2 counter offensive series on it. And I was like, that ain't no Oakland curriculum. Because all that stuff is Inasano adaptations. There's no way that was in anybody's Oakland curriculum, right?
Mm-hmm.
But wait, what was my point? I forget what my point was, right? But yeah, so finish me up with that. Your whole thought process about, are you saying there's a danger in teaching from your own personal experience?
No. My view is, it's just the difficulty is of it. Is it if it can get a bit confusing into what the art is. If you're teaching from, like, if I create a curriculum and go, well, this is Jeet Kune Do, rather than call it progressive fighting systems, progressive whatever, it's still JKD, and people that when they understand and learn the art, they understand that. But if you're looking in from a newbie, you're gonna get it's if you just go, right, this is, I don't know, progressive PFS, whatever you want to call it, right? Progressive martial arts. A few people use that one, so let's use that. It at least kind of goes right. It gives it a little bit of a name, a tag, just to clarify. But once people understand what it is, then they understand it's Jeet Kune Do, and then they can adapt it, right? It's their base. But it's just not my preference. I just go, right, let's just teach the material that I get from the 3 people that I train with.
Yeah. Okay.
But they could use it as a base, couldn't they? I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's not my preference.
Yeah. Well, see, I think what has to happen is that there's got to be personal integrity in the instructor. So the instructor, if you again, so my guideline is you got to be well rounded.
Yeah.
So you must have, let's call it a curriculum. You must have a curriculum that develops well-roundedness.
Yeah.
You see? So what's that? Kicking, punching, trapping, grappling. Yeah. If we limit ourselves to empty-handed combat. Yeah. So your curriculum has to cover that. So, but if you avoid, and then not only that, right? You see, it also has to evolve with the times. So you could say, oh yeah, I teach grappling, right? Okay, how? Oh, well, we go from the reference point, and then I box out and I hit, and then I put him in something or whatever. Okay, but does that fit in with the times? If you say, yeah, and I'm teaching this so that my students know how to defend themselves out there on the street. Well, I don't know what street that is, right? So you're not fitting in with the times.
Possibly. But then maybe you are, if it's close range, right? So if you're talking from a door perspective when you're close up, like the check-in, the Kali check-in, perfect. But then you might go for the check-in, they throw, hit, or you hit first. If the hands come up, you hit the back fist, then you do a figure 4 to the ground. I'm not saying it's going to work like that perfectly, but that's the
Mhm.
essence that could likely the situation where you're likely to be in. But then if they're further away, most people watch UFC. I mean, I can't count any two people I've seen on the doors try and rugby tackle people, single leg, double leg people,
Right.
and you're like, what are you doing? Because they clearly don't know what they're doing. Because do you know what I mean? And they're
Yeah.
drunk and stuff. But
Yeah.
so yeah, it's got to change.
But see, but that's where the intelligence factor comes in, Terry. Right. So they're not just integrity as an instructor, but intelligence as an instructor as well.
Yeah.
I got in trouble the other day for quoting my friend Dionysius, right? About because I put his quote about right about shaping the art to suit the person. I was like, and the thing is, nobody who the people who had a problem with it, they never explained what the problem. It's more like, well, that's not a quote that I recognize. It doesn't come from Bruce Lee, so it's got to be fake news because I don't recognize it, and I never heard of this guy. So, but forget that. Is what he's saying true or not true? If you object to the idea of shaping the art to suit the person, let's have that discussion. Not, oh, I never heard of this guy. I don't know. Who cares? Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a substantive argument against the idea that the art has to be shaped to suit the person?
Yeah.
Right? They never had a substantive argument against it. They jumped straight to the style hopping, oh, adding on stuff. What the hell? The quote has nothing to do with adding on or style hopping. It says you cannot expect everybody to do everything the same way. You can't teach a variety of individuals and insist that everybody look the same way, move the same way, or whatever. It can't happen. They never engage with that, with what the statement said. They went straight to the style hopping and add in stuff and styles. And they're so obnoxious and so monotonous with their stuff. I remember once. I'll do this again. I don't think I've done this in a while, right? So I'll get myself in trouble again. A guy says, everything I teach is what Bruce Lee taught me. Okay? All right. Cool. Excellent. Everything I teach, I got from Bruce Lee. Excellent. But that is not the same thing as everything Bruce Lee knew, he taught to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm
right.
Laptop's done. Yeah, that's true.
Those are not the same statements.
No.
Right? So there's no need to deify somebody who uses words like that. There's no need to set somebody like that up on a pedestal just because. Because if Bruce Lee is A to Z, and because of whatever reason, you got A to C, and now you teach A to C, good. It's better than nothing, but it ain't A to Z. Right? Because ain't nobody got A to Z from Bruce Lee. It's impossible.
Yeah.
If he had lived, right? If he had lived and Dan Inosanto and everybody was still alive, right? Everybody was now in their 80s and what have you. There's still no way that Bruce Lee would have taught any of them his A to Z. It ain't happening. That's not how life is. And even if he did try to teach it, there's no guarantee that all of them would have understood it and been able to learn it.
Yeah.
right? So you don't have to assign undue quality to somebody saying all I teach is what I got from Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that what a guy like that is teaching is not stellar. Of course it's stellar. It's excellent stuff. But it ain't the be all and end all.
Right.
You know? But you ain't supposed to say stuff like that because you'll get yourself in trouble, I guess.
That's what it's about.
Right. Yeah. Anyhow, all right. I've taken up enough of your time, and it's midnight. It's almost 1 a.m. where you are.
Yeah, I've got to be on task at 6.
Okay, get out of here. Thanks for spending some time with me this evening, my friend. I really enjoy it. I appreciate it.
Great chatting to you again.
All right. Okay.
Brilliant.
You take it easy. We'll keep talking.
I'll see you next Wednesday for your
Okay. All right. Yeah. And we'll give Mick Tully a chance to try to be number one. He won't do it. He can't do it. He sucks. All right, Terry. Have a good evening, man. Take care.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.